General quarters, all hands man your battle stations.
Broadcasting live on WNN 1470 AM, 95.3 FM, iHeartRadio, and the World Wide Web. This is Make America Think Again with your Google Blacklisted host, Tom Trento.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson. Danger.
All right, here we are, the start of a new week. Tom Trento, your host, The Trento Show at 11:04 in the morning. On the East Coast, that is. If you're somewhere on the West Coast of California, we feel sorry for you. We feel sorry for you today. You got a beautiful state. You got a crazy government. You know what? I think I want to talk about the craziness of California a little bit today on Monday the 13th. We'll see. It's kind of a...
That's an all-day show, Tom.
Yeah, it's kind of an open show Monday. 13 is my lucky number. Can you have a lucky number that's 13?
What was that? Trexodecaphobia or something? Well, that's Friday the 13th.
Triskaidekaphobia. Yeah, that's Friday the 13th. But did I hear in the background Midwest Dick?
Yeah, he's here.
Midwest Dick is in the house.
All right, Midwest Dick. Do they have any elevators in the Midwest?
They would have grain elevators. They move grain up and down.
Grain elevators. Do they have the 13th floor, or does it go from the 12th to the 14th floor?
12, 14, yeah.
I think 12, 14, I think, yeah.
The grain elevators?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pretty good.
You want to take chances with grain.
I don't want to get too philosophical on this beautiful Florida morning, a little bit after 11 o'clock a.m. in the morning, WNN 1470 on the 13th. 95.3. I was traveling over the weekend, going to Orlando, and I was going back and forth between 1470 and 95.3. And then when I drove out of the listening area, way north of North Palm Beach, guess what I did?
You clicked on your iHeartRadio, Tom.
iHeartRadio, hooked right into my rental car, and I was listening to Steve Kane and Brian Craig. They are the longest-running talk show in South Florida from 1977. We recommend everybody to start your day 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock listening to Steve and Brian. I know a lot of serious people, a lot of activists listen. You learn a lot from those guys, and you laugh and have a little bit of fun. But, Dick, what do you think, not wanting to get too philosophical, what do you think when you're in an elevator and you're going up and there's no 13th floor, just 12 and 14?
I think it kind of depends on your personality. If you're a certain type of person, that would be an obvious error. Somebody made a mistake. On the other hand, obviously there are people who just want to stay away from that scary number.
I think of Twilight Zone.
Why the Twilight Zone?
Because you go up, there was like there's a thing where they got off on the 13th floor in the Twilight Zone.
Oh, really?
And it became like this weird, spooky thing.
Maybe we're all living on the 13th floor. Maybe we're all living in the Twilight Zone. There seems to be an Alice in Wonderland kind of a world.
The even some rows in airplanes don't have row 13.
Really?
Right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Some of them. To me.
Do you know why the 13th is unlucky?
Why?
No idea. The massacre.
Not unlucky to me. It was my race car number. I drove a green race car.
That was the great
unlucky.
massacre of Friday the 13th when they killed all the Knights Templars, and they chased them out of Europe, and they took all their gold and they ran off in the hills. It's the big massacre.
Who's the they?
The King of France.
Well, the King of France kicked the butt of the
Knights. Massacred them. It was the Friday the 13th massacre.
Who are the Knights Templars? Who are these people? We don't know. This secret organization.
They're the ones who found defended the city of Jerusalem way back in the 1100s. And
the Templars were taking care of the temple.
Right.
Oh, so
those
they went
Templars.
in. They freed the city of Jerusalem from the religion of peace, who turned Jerusalem into a bunch of pieces, and then they took over protecting the temple. Is that it? Is that the thing?
Yeah.
Can we repeat something we learned last week that I think is relevant? It was new to me.
What was that?
That is what the Al-Quds brigade what Al-Quds means in Arabic.
Yeah.
I did not know that meant Jerusalem. And so to me that says a lot, and I guess it just reminds me of all the things that Americans don't know that would make a big difference. To know that that's the name of the force and that's the target is pretty important, and we don't know that. Yeah,
Midwest Dick is talking about Qassam Soleimani, who is no longer with us. That raises a very good question. On Open Craziness Monday, we can talk about that also. Where is he right now? What are the options?
Why aren't they happy about this? I mean, shouldn't you?
I know. Well, hang on. I want to get to that. But Soleimani headed up the IRGC, Iranian Revolutionary IRG Guards Corps. These were the inner circle of Ayatollah Khomeini in 1979. The inner circle that would protect Khomeini, who was essentially God manifested on earth. The IRGC was his inner circle because there were all kinds of factions going on in Iran in 1979 fighting for dominance and control. So they had to protect him, so they got the strongest, the best, trained them. And then a particular unit of the exported terrorism was called the Al-Quds Force. The Al-Quds Force. And Jerusalem. Now, why in the world, what was that all about? I mean, why are they picking Jerusalem instead of the Al-Mecca Force or the Al-Medina Force?
Because they need to attack Al-Quds, which is Jerusalem.
Yeah, and don't forget the, J. Mark, you're a little young, I think, for this. But 1970, how old were you in 1979? 6?
No, I was 16 years old.
Oh, you're 16. Okay. Did you know anything about world events here on the Trento show on Monday the 13th?
What year was it? 79?
Yeah, 79.
Well, actually, I know exactly where it was in 1979. I was at Vincennes University, and 2 doors down from me was 2 Iranians who were from Iran on an exchange student thing. And I remember the day that the 79 revolution happened, and they were terrified. I didn't understand why they were terrified.
They were spies. That's why they were going to be ousted.
No, probably. They said this is a really bad thing, what's happening over there, because we're getting in a very religiously radical, leadership. And they were terrified. They were terrified, and I didn't understand why.
All right. Well, that was in 1979. You were starting college. Tom Trento, your host, WNN 1470, 95.3. Marianne Williamson, we're going to get to her in a little while. Last week, oh my God, guys. Last week, Marianne stopped running. She stepped
No
out
way.
Yes,
oh, man.
Yes,
I wouldn't. I was going to vote for her, too.
Oh, she stopped running.
I was going to write her in.
Midwest Dick, you know who Marianne Williamson is?
No.
Nobody does.
Oh, I do.
No.
Oh, I loved her.
But
she was great.
week, on Friday, she threw in the towel.
No
and
way.
Said, you know what? I'm done with
I
you
didn't.
idiots.
I missed that.
I'm done.
I missed that
Well,
memo.
I have some of the weirdest Marianne Williamson moments of the campaign we're going to go through.
She was the gift that kept on giving, man.
But I want to deal with the Al-Quds Force. Back then, the Iranians, who now are taking control of Iran from the Shah. In 1979, your 2 buddies in college, Mark, were going, oh, no, they were probably pro-Shah people.
Yeah, they were.
And Khomeini was a brilliant guy, a cleric and imam, more than imam, an ayatollah. He achieved the highest level of education and the recognition as being right next to the prophet in terms of knowledge and position of strength, and he could deliver messages, fatwas, that were law, were Islamic law. So he reached that point, but he's also a politician. He knew that he just led a revolution against a country that had Western leanings, a pro-Western country with the Shah, and he had to solidify his support, at least in the Muslim world. So what else do? You say, I'm going to liberate Jerusalem. That's what I'm going to do. And in 1979, We had the Six-Day War in 67, the Yom Kippur War in 73. Things are very hot in the Middle East, in Israel. The Israelis are occupying Al-Quds, Jerusalem. So Ayatollah comes along as a Shia Muslim who hates Sunni Muslims, and he says to the Muslim world, I now will liberate Jerusalem. I have this special force, the Al-Quds force. And very, very quickly, well, actually, a few years later, Qassam Soleimani became the leader of all the Revolutionary Guard, but in particular the unique, I'd hate to compare these guys to the SEALs, but that type of special unit to liberate Jerusalem. All baloney, all nonsense, all a political
more like
move.
Rangers, probably.
All a political move. But that's Midwest Dick. That's what the Al-Quds force is all about.
And also in 79 is another big thing happened in 79 too, which was Iraq Revolution, where Saddam Hussein gathered up all the Ba'ath Party and threw them off the balcony, and said they were a fifth column inside, and killed them all. He took over power in 79 also. I don't know if it was before or after. Well, I can't remember what it was.
Well, he did that. Which solidified his control, and then a year later, he attacks Iran,
Right.
who now has this Ayatollah and Saddam Hussein. If you come with us to the Middle East, ladies and gentlemen, you'll understand the geography. Speaking of 1979, don't look. Who was in the Super Bowl? We're coming up to a Super Bowl here in Miami in a couple of weeks. Who was in the Super Bowl in 1979?
I know the Miami Hurricanes were in 80, but at that time also
Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah, I know. I know.
They're a
College.
team.
I understand that, but I was going to say the Dolphins.
But I will tell you this:
the Dolphins. I think it was the Dolphins.
The game was in the Orange Bowl in Miami, 1979, and I'll give you some hints, okay? For you listening audience, Tom Trento, your host, with Jay Mark in the control room.
Dolphins was 80.
Midwest Dick. Do not look. I'm watching both of you guys. Do not look. I'll give you some hints. Does anybody out there know who was in the 1979? We're talking about 1979, an Iranian revolution, an overthrow of Iraq by Saddam Hussein, and then a year later, the 10-year battle between Iraq and Iran. And if we leave the Middle East, if we leave Iraq, if we leave that embassy, which we may, you can have a replay of the 80s to the 90s of Iran and Iraq fighting each other, Sunni, Shias. All right, I'll give you a couple of hints. One of the that's too easy, that one. For Midwest Stick.
Oh, I can't answer.
No, you can't answer.
Okay.
One of the coaches was a guy by the name of Tom Landry.
Oh, God.
That's a big hint.
Okay.
That would be Dallas.
Dallas Cowboys. The other coach, that's too easy.
Hank Stram.
No, the other coach was had the four letters N-O-L-L, Noel.
That
Chuck
would be
Noll?
Pittsburgh.
Oh, man, Midwest Dick pulls that one out. Pittsburgh and Dallas, 35-31. Who won?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh Steelers. Who was the MVP?
Terry Bradshaw.
Terry Bradshaw. All
Terry
right,
T.D.
1979. Now, you Super Bowl experts, who's going to be in the Super Bowl this year?
Man, my Saints got blown out. Man, that was
Yanks,
sad.
the Yanks
That was
again.
sad.
I think there's a new kind of player in Baltimore that got everybody confused. So I think defenses don't know what to do with Lamar Jackson. So I think there's a good chance it's going to be the Ravens.
Ooh, we got the Ravens, and who else?
It is Monday, so you know.
Okay, right, exactly. So we don't know about that. What's going to happen? So, so who are you picking, Mark?
I don't know. I have no idea. I wait. I'm going to wait till next weekend to see.
Okay, that's good. And we'll see who wins. But it is in Miami, but it's not in the Orange Bowl anymore. Anybody out there ever been in the Orange Bowl?
No, you have been.
I've been there many times. Yeah.
I've never been there.
My first game, Midwest Dick, in the Orange Bowl, I was just in college. And I went to the I-71 maybe, whatever. LSU playing Nebraska for the national championship.
Yep.
Oh.
And I was a little crazy in those days. We had this gigantic sign, number 1, that was 50 feet long and 5 feet high. It happened to be the name of our fraternity house, 1, Omega Nu Epsilon.
Oh,
So somewhere in our travels in Florida, we purchased this sign very cheaply, very, very cheaply.
5-finger discount.
Yeah, 50 feet long by 5 feet high. And we said, hey, they're playing for the national championship. Let's try to get into the Orange Bowl.
Right.
And in any event, we get in the Orange Bowl.
How'd you get in? Did you actually pay for a ticket?
In those days, we tried not to pay, and we were masters at not paying for anything, especially toll booths. We would go by the toll booth and throw popsicle sticks in or whatever. There were no cameras or anything. But so we said it was a challenge to get into the Orange Bowl without having to pay. And we were good, 3 of us, and we scoured the perimeter. And there was no way in. They had locked down the place.
Oh, yeah?
So we went, darn. And we had to spring for $3 a piece to get seats in the.
Oh, you actually paid $3. Well, that was a lot of money back in '79.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could have parachuted in. It would have been a shorter distance than all the way in the back at the top. And we're carrying this sign, and we said, this is useless. What are we going to do with this sign up here?
Way up there, right. We got to get it down the field.
So we spotted in the Orange Bowl, there was a second level, and we spotted a beautiful area that if we got to that second level, we can drape the sign over. It's at the end, behind one of the end zones, and it'll be perfect on every end zone shot with the cameras. So we go up there, we work our way in, like we're involved there or something. We lay the flag over, and we have a couple of people there. We go, hold the flag, the sign, hold the sign. And they're holding the sign. And we got this big sign laid out in the end zone. You can see it from all over the place. And we said, all right, mission accomplished. Let's just stay here. We're all hanging out with these guys. 10 minutes later, security comes.
How are you going to move the sign?
We had to get rid of the sign. Why?
No advertisement on it. You can't have. They were advertising.
No. It was hanging below and blocking the bottom row of the level behind us, underneath us. So the last 10 or 15 rows
couldn't see the game.
Our sign was that long.
Oh, I'd have been pissed.
And and then they got mad. They go, you can't do that. And so now we never give up. We never give up. So guess what we did next, Midwest? You're never going to guess, but make believe you can guess.
You ran out on the field, and you were streakers. I have no idea.
Well, close.
You were
That's
streaking
very
during
close.
the
Were you there? Were you there?
That was
very
you? I
close.
thought that recognized you. No, I don't recognize you.
It was very close.
I don't want to recognize you.
It was the time of streaking, but we here's what we did.
Managed to keep your clothes on, but
We kept our clothes on. What we did was we said, all right, this is great. And look, there's screaming and nonsense and football and there's all kinds of chaos. So you can operate within chaos if you got a little bit of
chaos breeds opportunity.
Yeah, if you got a little bit of a
It's going on today.
So we folded up the sign, and the thing was gigantic, 50 by 5, may have been 6 feet. So it's a heavy piece of canvas painted number 1, big block letters. And we go, let's try this. I go, come on. So we go down to the field, to the gate where security is, and we go, Coach wants the sign. Coach wants the sign. We're on the Nebraska side, right? Coach wants a sign. Coach wants a sign. And the security guys go,
what?
Coach wants a sign. Coach wants a sign. Get the sign in there. Get the sign in there. So we go, these guys are crazy. We love it. So we go out on the field, Orange Bowl, 65,000, whatever the number was. Huge. We're by the cheerleaders for Nebraska. We unravel the sign that says number 1. We hold it up. Whoa! Nebraska goes wild. We're looking at each other going, okay, all right, we got seats for the rest of the game.
Right.
And we partied with the cheerleaders,
Whoa.
everybody on the field, and held the sign up, ran around, went all over here. Then we're leading cheers. We're pushing that big Nebraska has that cowboy with the hat. They have a you push it around. We're throwing it back up to the stand. It's coming down here. One of the guys is hanging with one of the I'm going, come on, help me out over here. He's playing with the cheerleader. Unbelievable. And we had a blast. We were the heroes of the thing. Nebraska beat LSU and became number one. The next day, the Miami Herald had the bottom of the sports page, the whole bottom gutter, the whole bottom of it.
Lower third, right?
Was our sign, number one. That's how they distinguished it. A couple of years ago,
did you ever find the footage of that?
People are tuning in going, what are these people talking about? This is Tom Trento on Chaotic Monday. Look, we do a lot of politics and cultural stuff and economic stuff.
Break it up a little bit.
Yeah, we're breaking it up a little bit. We'll get to some of that. But we all had a good weekend. We watched football. There's going to be a Super Bowl. I'm talking about an adventure I had, I think it was 1971, LSU, Nebraska National Championship. LSU wins. They become the national champions. I had a big sign, me and two other guys. A couple of years ago, Midwest Dick, with all the capability to do research, I said, let me see if anybody ever taped that game. And I go and I actually have it.
You have it?
Yeah. I find the game on YouTube because it was a national championship game.
Yeah, of course.
Not only do I find the game, I see the camera zooming in on our sign. Not only that, I see me holding the sign a million years ago, and I got the video.
So what's the video link so everybody can go watch it?
I'm not going to tell you.
That would be the full head of hair, Tom, right?
Oh, man, I had a big afro and all of that. I keep it shorter now. I keep my hair shorter now.
Yeah, you put Velcro on the wall and Tom's stuck.
Yeah. So that was one of my Orange Bowl stories. But the Super Bowl in 1979, the Steelers, the Steel Curtain, all those guys, remember that team? Beat Tom Landry and the Cowboys. Who was the coach of the Cowboys in 79? Not the coach, quarterback.
Roger Dodger.
In 79?
Roger Dodger.
Was he?
Staubach.
Yeah, Roger Staubach.
Let me see. Yeah, he was. He was a hero of mine from when he played at Navy. And
yeah, that's back when I guess like they just started nationally televising football games like around the country, and Dallas was like that's the reason it became America's team because everybody watched Dallas Cowboys because they were nationally broadcast throughout every state, and that's how the America's team thing came about.
Did he ever take a knee, Roger Staubach? Ever take a knee?
No, but he started the shotgun. He was the inventor of the shotgun.
That's true. All right, here we are, Football Monday. Tom Trento, your host, WNN 1470. 95.3, I have in the control room, Midwest Dick. Dick, you have something going on Tuesday and Thursday of this week. We're going to talk about that. And J. Mark Campbell, back to, I haven't forgotten about number 13 in an elevator. Whenever I see that, I have a background in philosophy and stuff, and I get a little philosophical. I go, how stupid can people be? I mean, if you're on the 12th floor and you go to one higher and somebody tells you the 14th, it's not the 14th floor, ladies and gentlemen. It's the 13th floor in reality. Why do people try to hide from reality by changing numbers around?
Well, if you're a Knights Templar, you would know why.
They're afraid of the 13th
floor.
I thought they were tough guys.
Well, the Templars, there's a lot of that came from that was brought over to America, and a lot of that traditions were passed down over the centuries. And
toughen up, Templars. Come on,
Well, I think with all the moral relativism we've got, why is there a 13? Why can't we just reinvent the number system? We'll leave 13. I'm just saying you could just say somehow somebody's offended by 13, so we're going to forget 13. Maybe we'll forget 2. We'll forget. How about if we just forget the prime numbers? I mean, it's got to offend somebody.
Well, you're talking Marianne Williamson's language now. Marianne Williamson dropped out. Moment of silence, Mark. Do you have any sound effects?
I've been shocked. I'm in denial. I'm in denial. She's still running. So.
Marianne Williamson was that woman in the early debates. Remember, Dick, the New Age woman, and she talked about winning the world if she becomes president with love.
Oh, the love candidate.
The love candidate.
As opposed to the hate candidate.
Yes, and she would be the love candidate as opposed to the hate candidate. She was she made her money as a self-help guru, a new age where in the new age, the concept of absolutism is absolutely wrong. I love debating people who don't believe in absolutes, because that's very offensive. An individual who holds to absolutes like me, I believe there are absolute principles that are absolutely true, absolute physical laws that are absolutely true. To someone that doesn't, I'm offensive to them, and they will tell me there are no absolutes. You, Trento, think they're absolutes. There are no absolutes. What do you think the simple answer to that is?
How about if I hit you over the head with a baseball bat? Are you going to absolutely feel that?
Well, that works. That's a graphic way of illustrating a very important point. But think about it, Midwest Dick. I'm there saying there are absolutes, and somebody tells me there are no absolutes, and you should know better, Tom Trento. There are no absolutes. What is my just typical response now after doing this 20,000 times?
Gravity?
No, just.
Are you living? Are you breathing?
Are you absolutely sure there are no absolutes?
I got it.
Are you absolutely sure? So
Absolutely.
What you're telling me is absolutely there are no absolutes. So there's at least one, the one you're using right now.
Got it.
Right.
F you, Trento. People who abandon rational thought move into a lifestyle, or Democrats. They move into a lifestyle, then they become Democrats. And their worldview collapses on themselves. And number 13, I think, reflects that. We got to make.
Well, do you know how many books Marianne Williamson wrote?
I would guess 15.
13 books.
Whoa.
She needs to write another book.
You know how many of them I read?
0.
Absolutely none.
Is that an absolute, Tom?
That's an absolute.
What was her program? I mean, if there's no absolutes, you couldn't pin her down to any particular policy, I would assume. She could. What was her platform?
Well, she said this about someone. I'm going to read what she said. This is Marianne Williamson, who was the love candidate, who dropped out after we finished on Friday. She dropped out Friday afternoon, officially quit running as a candidate when I think she really stopped running about 9 months ago. But be that as the case may be, she said this about somebody. I'd like you guys, J. Mark or Midwest Dick, to tell me who she's talking about. This man has reached into the psyche of the American people, and he has harnessed fear for political purposes. So, Mr. Blank, if you're listening, I want you to hear me, please. You have harnessed fear for political purpose, and only love can cast that out. Sir, sir, have a feeling you know what you're doing. I'm going to harness love for political purposes. I will meet you on that field, and, sir, love will win.
Obama. She's talking about Obama.
Okay, Barack Obama, that's not possible. Absolutely not possible. You got a shot at it, Midwest Dick? Who's she talking about?
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it was President Trump. Okay, I'll help you guys. I'll help you guys out, okay?
Who is Donald Trump? The question has to be in the
Yeah,
form.
Who is Donald Trump?
Who is Donald Trump? Right. Is that Jeopardy or whatever?
Jeopardy, yeah.
Jeopardy is having the best of all time right now. We're in the middle of it. People might be listening. This one guy has 2 wins, 1 more, and he gets another $1 million. So this is on everybody's mind.
Yeah, Ken whatever.
Ken whatever. Yeah.
I don't watch the show, but I hear there's a lot of hype and everything going around. All right, well, let's take another look at the New Age thinker. Now, we're doing this, folks, because here on the Trento Show on January 13th, Monday, Tom Trento, your host, we want to help America think again. We want to make America think again. And we are in what a lot of historians and philosophers call a post-Christian age. Post-Christian age. That the influence of Christianity coming out of the New Testament, the principles of the New Testament, and by design, Christians are locked into the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. We don't have just the New Testament Christians. We fully believe in the Hebrew Bible. Our Jewish brothers and sisters believe in the Hebrew Bible, but not the New Testament, Old Testament, New Testament. If you put both of those books together and people believe it and they start a little country called the United States of America, it will have a Christian influence. It will be a Christian-focused country. It will have a Christian belief system. But now it's fairly well understood and documented that we are in a post-Christian age. Help me out, gentlemen. What's a post-Christian age?
That means God is dead.
unless his name is Allah. That's the only
Yeah.
two choices. Either God is dead, there is no God, or there is no God but Allah. So Christianity is passé. It's come and gone.
Well, it's driven by the media who tries to make you think that religion doesn't matter anymore, and that's going to come really shock to the 24% of evangelicals in Florida, 49% of the evangelicals in Alabama, 41% of the evangelicals in Mississippi, 31% of the evangelicals in Texas. You're talking about 1/3 of the country is Christian, and they're a cult, and they're trying to say that they're a cult. Are you kidding me? This is such a whitewash of information.
The problem is they cling. They cling to their Bible and their bullets. Remember, we had the cling accusation years ago, which has stuck. A lot of people believe that Christians cling to their Bible and their guns, and that's a negative for the New Age.
Yeah, that's a very good explanation of the situation. Fleshing it out a bit more, Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher, wrote a book, God is Dead, and now we look for a Superman. All of this, the post-Christian concept means that the institutions in a culture, when you build a society, as it grows, it develops institutions. Because if it's just you and your wife, you have a couple of kids, your educational institution is your house. You teach them at home. But if those kids have kids and those kids have kids and the more kids come and other people come and more kids, you can't fit everybody in your house to teach them. So you put up a little school building. And then as it grows more and more and more over 245 years and from 2 million people to over 300 million people, you got a bunch of school buildings all over the place. And then you have an institution of education. Well, what is the philosophy? What are the moral principles? What are the cultural principles of the basic philosophy of that educational system? If you're in China, what are the basic principles?
Chinese traditionalism, yeah.
And
Buddha, whatever.
It's atheistic in China.
Maoism.
Maoism, which is communism. If you're in, the Buddha is in India, places like that, Hindus. They have
Buddha's in Thailand and stuff like that.
Yeah,
in
all
those
the
places.
Asian countries, the Buddha was a man, not a god. He had 8 life principles. He had a wheel, 8 life principles. That's what Buddhists would teach if you're in a Buddhist culture. If you're in a Hindu culture, 330 million different deities. That's what they teach.
Yep.
Well, if you're in a Buddhist culture and you're no longer following the 8 principles of the wheel, then you're in a post-Buddhist culture because that institution is no longer influencing its citizens.
Right.
Well, in the United States, the Christian principles, distilled down to the 10 Commandments, no longer influence a majority of the members of society in the United States of America. We have pushed Christianity aside as a national norm. and
good versus evil becomes also. I mean,
and it pops right up.
and the blurring of the line of good versus evil, and well, there's a lot of gray here. You look at Soleimani. He was a leader. Just like Elvis, and just like Princess Diana, and you go around killing his. I mean, I'm quoting Chris Matthews, by the way.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I know.
And so there's these lines of. I mean, I'm sorry, Osama bin Laden, global terrorist, dead. Soleimani, global terrorist, dead. It's very simple, very good and evil to me. But they want to blur these lines and say, well, we don't have the right to kill leaders, that we just decide we want to kill. No, there's a process. There's a whole, that's the reason you have the death penalty for people who kill other people. But now it becomes this, pedophilia is kind of like child love, and it's kind of a, it's not, the lines keep getting blurred and blurred and blurred and blurred until there is no good and evil anymore. Well, exactly. And that's the destruction of the church.
That's exactly right, because once you take the stabilizing moral force of a culture, principles of Christianity, again, distilled down to the Jewish Christian principles of the Ten Commandments, if you take those away and say the house we're building no longer has a foundation of absolute theological truth, then now what do you put as a foundation? First of all, the house starts shifting and shaking. Then what do you put as a foundation on that?
The problem is then, if that's the case, then the Constitution, which is based on that foundation, the Constitution really has to go. It's the problem. The problem is, if all that is true, then the Constitution can be a racist document. So the Constitution really needs to be replaced, and it doesn't need to be replaced according to the amendment process. It could just be overthrown. So I think what we're looking at is not just a post-Christian world. I think in America we're a post-Constitution, and you will watch, in my opinion, you could very easily see a regime change that is not constitutional. We could have a constitutional election in 2020. We're all working towards that. We could have a fair constitutional election, but if there's no absolutes, if the foundation is flawed, if then the Constitution is flawed, we could have a regime change outside the Constitution.
No, this is frightening, ladies and gentlemen. You just heard from J. Mark and Midwest Dick. We have a little bit of time left in our show today, Monday, January 13th. Tom Trento, your host, WNN 1470 95.3. We are part of an organization called the United West. We're trying to unite the West with common principles, the Judeo-Christian principles, moral principles. There are political principles. There are economic principles. We're trying to unify the West to the extent we can, certainly the United States, trying to unify the United States, the West, Israel, against the prevalent ideologies of the day competing for being that foundation in the United States. And there's two competing ideologies today. You guys want to take a shot at any of those two prevailing ideologies fighting against Christianity today in the United States of America?
Yeah, well, called Marxism and Islam.
So we have Carl. There's a lot of people that would be followers of Carl instead of followers of Jesus or Moses.
And then Muhammad.
And then the other one would be the followers of Allah. So we've got Carl and Mo leading the charge on one side, and on the other side we have Moses and Jesus leading the sides. And there's a war going on.
A cultural war.
Absolutely. And all you have to do, folks, is take a step back. You don't have to be a historian. You don't have to be a philosopher. You don't have to be a pundit. You take a step back and you just think, does there seem to be more acceptance by more people today of socialism, which is Marxism,
yes,
of socialism than any other time in my lifetime?
I was just thinking about that the other day. I mean, I remember 20 years ago, Dick, and maybe you too, Tom, is if someone was called a socialist, I mean, they were like throwing out the door and like, get out of here. I mean, who are you?
They were relegated to
nut job status,
to bizarre academic positions. The nutty socialist professor over there, or
the Marxist professor. It's like, what are you talking about, dude?
Yeah,
don't
exactly.
you know? I mean, we knew about what Marxism.
They were an anomaly. They were a fun thing to look at and talk about, And now it's like
Mainstream.
it's mainstream. Well, when you take the Christian influence away and you become post-Christian, you have to be present something.
Right.
Whenever you're post anything, you have to be present something. And the battle for the present foundation for the West, for America, is indeed either George Washington and his guys, or Karl Marx and his guys,
Right.
or Mohammed and his guys. Pick your choice.
And here's another interesting thing, too. You bring this up. Since we're in a post-Christian culture, and the Constitution was based on a Judeo-Christian God all the way through it, therefore, people who are post-Christian are post-Constitution, so they have to get rid of that document, which is supported by Judeo-Christian principles. And everything, and so if you say, well, I don't want to be, pro-Christian, but I am pro-Constitution, it's the same thing, people. The Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, everything is based on Judeo-Christian principles at its core foundation. You can't take it out. It's like trying to take sand out of concrete. It falls apart.
That's why the Mohammedans or the Marxists want to change the Constitution, because it reflects, and I'll give you a perfect illustration. Do you guys, Midwest Dick, J. Mark, and you don't have to get into details, do you either have any relatives who are gay, whether lesbians or homosexual men, or you know anybody that's gay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, of course. Me too. Relatives, friends, the whole deal. And it's very simple from a Christian perspective, and there's no reason to make any apologies. A Christian, as an evangelical Christian, if someone is having sexual relations outside of their marriage, they're committing adultery. That's wrong. If someone is stealing from someone, they're wrong. The Ten Commandments. And there's other laws, obviously. If someone, the Bible clearly says, is involved in a same-sex relationship, it's morally wrong before God. I didn't write that. If I were writing all these 10 commandments, there'd probably be 2 commandments, with a bunch of like, okay, if it didn't work for you, be careful over here. And if I were writing the rules, I don't write the rules. I'm explaining the rules. And one of the rules is that a homosexual relationship is morally wrong before the God of the Christian Bible and before the God of the Jewish Bible, which is the same God. Even the Muslims, recognize the immorality of homosexuality, though their Allah is not the same.
They throw you off a building if you're homosexual.
Yeah, I know.
In there.
Well, step one is, should we as Christians, because society has now accepted and endorsed a homosexual lifestyle, should we say, oh, okay, all right, it's not morally wrong anymore. This is one of those absolutes I was talking about. It's morally wrong. But from a Christian point of view, what do we do about it? Well, Jesus has taught tremendously about that. It's kind of trite, but you love the sinner, hate the sin. So you try to help the person. But the bigger question is, do you allow a obviously wrong lifestyle to become an integrated part of public policy? Should we allow people who love, grown men who love little boys or little girls, should we allow that? This is a trick question out there for you people starting to get aggravated. If we have a grown 50-year-old man and he likes to have sex with 5-year-old girls, should that be a legitimate part of public policy? Be careful how you answer.
So since we're talking about Muhammad,
since we're talking about Muhammad.
Oh, Muhammad.
Oh, Muhammad, you mean?
I wasn't actually talking about him, but the
I know you were.
illustration is pretty close.
Unfortunately, sadly, there's some comparisons between Muhammad and another massive religion which has got a problem with pedophilia. So it's a problem. And do we want to institutionalize and accept it just because there's a level of prevalence? Obviously, in a post-Christian world, that might be the way to go. Unfortunately, that's how major civilizations have collapsed, by adopting immorality, and that's the brink that we're on right now.
I'm going to illustrate this post-Christian post-Christian culture we're in through one of the policies of Marianne Williamson, who's the dearly departed candidate, in a second. But we're laying out, folks, Tom Trento, we got about 10 minutes left, Mark, something like that, into the show. WNN 1470, 95.3. 11 minutes. And you can find us on iHeartRadio. If you want to check out the website, theunitedwest.org, theunitedwest.org. Go there. We want you to come to Israel with us. We have a small group going, special election year mission. We're leaving in May, 18 through 29. Go to our specific website for that, JerusalemDay2020.com, JerusalemDay2020.com. Midwest Dick, I think you got something going on tomorrow, the 14th, on Sharia Crime Stoppers. Tell us about that.
Actually, we start tonight. Actually, we have 3 webinars this week. Tonight is Claire Lopez at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Tomorrow night is Robert Spencer at 7 o'clock Tuesday night. And on Thursday night, we have a very special webinar, Sharia Crime Stoppers United West, with Tom Trento.
And OG, by the way.
Oh.
So we'll have to deal with that. That's going to be a fun one. But we will. I'm looking forward to that. What an outstanding litany of wonderful people, particularly the first 2, Claire and Robert Spencer. Folks, you got to tune in. How do they do that, Dick? If they want to be part of the Sharia Crime Stoppers webinar, what do they have to do exactly?
They simply go to theunitedwest.org, click on the Sharia Crime Stoppers page. If they look down there, they'll see a link to register. Once they register for any one of them, they will be connected and registered for all of them, and they will get notices a day before, an hour before, reminding them. They'll get an email, there'll be a link, and then they just join. And they sit at home. They watch these experts give information, and they can type in questions and be part of the program by being involved with questions of experts.
It's very, very cool, and you will see what Midwest Dick looks like.
Yeah.
That's why I have a face. I've been told I have a face for radio.
You are doing amazing work. You'll see Mary also. Mary is a integral part of the United West. Dick and Mary started Sharia Crime Stoppers a few years ago, and it's a tremendous way to learn, to be entertained, but also to learn, and it's interactive. You can participate. You type questions, the questions get asked, they get responded. Phenomenal way at home to learn from the masters. These first 2 are amazing.
And speaking of Sharia Crime Stoppers, what's going on with the governor in Texas?
Well,
I'm going to talk about him tomorrow on Tuesday's show. Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
Just a quick footnote. Sharia Crime Stoppers, the notion of that is that individual people in America are impacted by Sharia-sanctioned crime. We're called Sharia Crime Stoppers because people really are unaware of the sanctioned crime, the sanctioned behavior that Sharia gives people the sanction to commit. In America, there are crimes like rape and pedophilia and polygamy. So that's the notion of it. By the way, real quick, the other co-founder, of course, is David Boris, a retired police chief, and he's part of our program and part of our production team, and he does individual webinars and training as well.
David Bores, B-O-R-E-S, B-O-R-E-S. Look him up. An amazing guy, long, distinguished career in law enforcement. And then after 9/11, like many of us, we became focused on the Islamic Jihad threat. Our good friend John Guandolo runs Understanding the Threat. You need to understand the threat. One of the key people with a law enforcement background who understands the threat is David Bores. You'll see him on Sharia Crime Stoppers. So great place to be for the webinars, and you'll get the schedule once you sign up. Going back to the post-Christian culture, question I left hanging out there was, what if an older person wants to be involved with a little kid? And it's repulsive at first. But let me tell you, I've been at this for a while. The stuff that's happening on TV in front of us, the stuff that's being taught in schools today, you talk about 20 years ago, was repulsive. 30 years ago, it was incomprehensible to have some of the stuff that's broadcast on TV in sitcoms or in I'm talking about evening television, cable TV, network TV, the relationships, the way they're spoken about, all of this, incomprehensible 30 years ago. But when you take your Christian culture and post it somewhere else, this is what you get. So how does Marianne Williamson fit into this? Well, one of her quirky policy concerns, if she became president, and one of the qualifications that she felt distinguished her above the other 20 or 50 or 100 candidates that were running a couple of months ago, she cited that her daughters, so Marianne Williamson, who's about 60 years old, New Age self-help guru, she has a couple of daughters. She said, I could be a great president because my daughters have, you guys ready for this?
Oh, God.
5 gay godfathers as their most significant relationship within the LGBT community. Somebody want to explain it to me?
Wow. 5 gay.
My daughter has 5 gay godfathers. She told the Washington Blade, a gay paper, over the summer. My best friend was for many years. He died a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. He was a gay man. So my relationships with the gay individuals has been very, very deep. So she's touting her bona fides to engage the gay community, to support her. And she's saying, I'm raising my daughter with 5 gay godfathers. Now, let me tell you this. 20 years ago, maybe not even, if they're honest today, the American Psychiatric Association, if they were honest today, and you say, is it mentally healthy for a young girl, even a 10 or 12-year-old girl, to have the influence of 5 gay godfathers in her life versus a father? What would the American Psychiatric Association say 40 years ago?
No.
Well, what they wouldn't say, and I think we can bring this close to home. So when you put your child on the yellow school bus and they get off the bus and into first grade, the first thing the teachers do this last semester, I'm aware of it from multiple people, is to have a conversation with the children about what pronoun they want to be today. How do you want to be as a first grader? And so creating that level of, I think they call it sexual fluidity, amongst a 6-year-old child is just part of this Alice in Wonderland world we live in. And so I'm not, she's got an audience. I can imagine her saying that, and she does have an audience. And anybody who would even question it the way you are questioning it would be called a hater and would be basically ostracized. And unfortunately, the word love, which is a wonderful word, is being abused in that conversation.
It all goes back to what we spoke about from the beginning, these absolute things. If you hold to absolute principles, that homosexuality is absolutely and morally wrong from a Christian or from a Jewish perspective. If you hold an Orthodox Jewish perspective, the lefty Jews aren't, even the lefty Christians won't agree. But we're talking about serious theologians, Jewish and Christian theologians. If you hold to the teaching being absolutely true, then yeah, of course you're considered a hater, but that's nonsensical. I mean, if we're holding to a principle that we know to be true, and the people around us no longer want to believe in gravity, do we say, okay, I guess gravity doesn't
We'll just
exist.
float around here.
Yeah, let's jump off the building together, just as there are physical laws that determine what occurs in a cause and effect relationship, so, ladies and gentlemen, there are spiritual laws. In fact, recently, I heard some in the psychiatric community saying the most ideal relationship for a child growing is with a mother and a father, obviously. They actually said that. So now they try to backfill and say, well, I guess you could have 5 gay godfathers. Each can bring another piece. And you take the post and you take the Christian and you put the Christian in the post, and you got all hell opens up and all chaos. Unbelievable. How much time we got left?
That means post-constitutional is right down the street, and a regime change at the end of 2020 is certainly realistic.
Well, the thing is this, exactly what you're saying. Once Once you accept a new social moray, a social norm that is completely opposite of what the framers and founders considered. How much time we got, Mark?
1 minute.
Framers and founders considered. Well, you don't go, you know what? I'm going to change my behavior now and reconform it to the Bible. You go, oh, those guys didn't know. They were all gay guys anyway. You know, change the Constitution. Let's modify it. Let's ignore it.
Well, going back to what you said earlier, Tom. All right, what would George Washington and Abraham Lincoln do?
Yeah.
And you're like, can you imagine them? Okay, what are you talking
George.
about?
Hi, Uncle George. Hi, Uncle Abe. These are my 5 gay godfathers.
And this
here.
is my preferred first personal pronoun. They go, what?
Well, they would have said, gee, I'm glad they're happy. The word gay, of course, back then always just meant I'm pursuing happiness. Maybe I am happy. Maybe I'm gay.
All right,
in
guys.
the last 30 seconds here, we can. This whole concept of what we're trying to push for as far as our voting is concerned, and these principles aren't some arcane principles. They're founded principles in God. But that's the battle we're fighting.
You preach it. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care now. Tom Trento signing off for the crew here.